welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Joe Concha, joined by my co-host and possible host of the Tony Awards next year. Just read about that. Forbes columnist Rick Unger. Also, she's one of Philadelphia's top attorneys and would have won Celebrity Apprentice next season if Donald Trump didn't bail on the whole show to not run for president. Heather Hansen, welcome once again. And finally, Newsmax contributor, editor of the Wisdom Daily, and president of the Mike Ditka fan club. I didn't know that.
There you go. Live and learn.
Rabbi Brad Hirschfeld of Chicago.
Of Chicago.
I had to guess on that. Chicago. It's time for the Daily Download. And one day after it was determined that, once again, Benjamin Netanyahu will be Prime Minister of Israel, NBC's Andrea Mitchell scores the first interview with Bibi. The big topic, his relationship with President Obama.
I think there's an unbreakable bond between Israel and the United States. The president said that. I've said that.
But what about between you and Barack Obama?
Well, I think that is reflected in the relationship between the president of the United States and the prime minister of Israel. We can have differences, but we have so many things that unite us, and we have a situation in the Middle East that is very dangerous and presents a common challenge to us.
Has he called you yet to congratulate you on your victory?
Secretary Kerry called me yesterday, and I'm sure I'll be speaking to President Obama soon.
Now, we should point out the president has congratulated the prime minister since that was taped this afternoon. Former White House Chief of Staff David Axelrod had this to say last night about the win.
There are troubling dimensions to this, and particularly the manner in which Netanyahu chose to run his campaign in the last few weeks. He mortgaged the future in order to win an election.
Can't get used to him without the mustache. It's odd. Anyway, maybe David Axelrod spoke too quickly. Bibi told Andrea Mitchell at NBC that he hasn't changed his position on a two-state solution.
I haven't changed my policy. I never retracted my speech in Bar-Ilan University 6 years ago, calling for a demilitarized Palestinian state that recognizes the Jewish state. What has changed is the reality. Abu Mazen, the Palestinian leader, refuses to recognize the Jewish state. He's made a pact with Hamas that calls for the destruction of the Jewish state. And every territory that is vacated today in the Middle East is taken up by Islamist forces. So
but they are saying
we want that to change so we can realize a vision of real sustained peace. And I don't want a one-state solution. I want a sustainable, peaceful two-state solution. But for that, circumstances have to change.
Oh, quite a difference a day makes. And two thoughts on this, Rick. One, does Benjamin Netanyahu own any other tie besides the color blue? Never seen him in anything else. I know it's the color of Israel, but man,
Loves
he's
that
sharp.
color.
I love it. Don't get me wrong.
You're absolutely right.
It's true. And two, you must have some thoughts as far as not for a two-state and for a two-state.
I don't think I've ever seen somebody back away from a campaign promise quite that quickly in my life. It was amazing. And a lot of the talk early today was about how the administration was kind of pulling back and saying, okay, you're going to be this way. We're not going to defend you at the Security Council anymore. We're not just going to veto everything when everybody else wants to get on your case because we've always been on your side. And that started a lot of trouble. But there's a reason for this. People have to realize that we have been working on a two-state solution in this country for how many, years and administrations. And for him to simply turn his back on that was very, very disturbing. More importantly, and I actually brought a graph, a chart we can put up, most Americans, and I don't mean most in terms of a majority, but you'll see the plurality very much believe in the two-state solution. And so basically what Bibi Netanyahu had said to all of us, we don't really care what you want. I'm not going to ever go for it. Well, today he has backed off on it. There's one more point, though, I do want to make, and it was something I was trying to get to last night, but we'll do it now. Everybody gets very concerned about this relationship between Netanyahu and Obama, but what we forget is that we've seen this movie before, and strangely enough, we saw it with Bibi Netanyahu. Let's put up that quote, which it was something that James Baker, when he was Secretary of State in the first George H.W., I guess here, I'll just read it from here, administration, there you go. As head of the State Department, this is from the Jerusalem Post, under President George H.W. Bush in 1990, Baker said that Netanyahu, then Deputy Foreign Minister, was barred from the State Department building after saying that American foreign policy in the Middle East was based on lies and distortions. I barred him, Baker said, that may not be widely known. At the very same time, the George H.W. Bush administration was making the same noises about not defending Israel in the Security Council. We've seen this before, folks. Don't get freaked out. Nothing's going to happen to the U.S.-Israeli relationship. But don't think that it's all Obama the Terrible doing this, because it happened very similarly in the past with the first Bush administration.
But Brad, has it happened to this degree? I don't remember, and it's a good example and good research, quite frankly, by Rick, but I don't remember it ever being this cold before between two major allies.
I don't know if it's happened to this degree, but I think also memory dulls our senses, right? Time dulls our senses. It wasn't so great then. The real lesson, though, is it was a bad idea when Baker did it, and it's a bad idea now. That's what's troubling. This administration doesn't understand. Playing it out this way doesn't even get them what they want, let alone what Bibi wants. So it's strategically foolish. The key in that graphic, Rick, is that people in this country, and I'm right there with them, and most Israelis, 75% of Israelis, want an Israeli state and a Palestinian state side by side. What Bibi's concerned about, I think he handled it badly, was that it wouldn't be side by side. And the other thing to remember is here that if 75-25 of Israelis want two states, it's the reverse. 75-25 of Palestinians now reject that idea.
But there was a time when they
did. There was a time they did it.
And
I think we still have to
ago.
pursue things. No partner is not an excuse. But to put some context on it, there is no partner on the other side who really embraces that idea.
Right. Explain this to me for a moment then. If 75% of Israelis want a two-state solution, then why would he promise on the eve of an election that there will be no two-state solution if you're only getting 25% support around that idea?
Was he moved about 5% that he needed to deliver the victory he got. Right? The majority, he knew where those votes were going, and within that 75%, the center-right was going to vote for him and didn't need him to say that. What he did is he needed to beat out the Zionist camp. He needed to beat out that Zionist union, and the way he did that was by playing to the far right and actually edged out this ultra right-wing religious nationalist party that ended up getting to nothing. So he did what he did. It was just dirty politics. Now he's walked it back.
Well, Heather, you get 10 whole seconds to weigh in on this.
Sorry,
Listen, it's okay, but I think it's a function of fear, and I think that there's reason for them to be afraid given what's going on with Iran, and I think that that's sort of where this is all coming from.
Wow, well said. She encapsulated that perfectly. In 8 seconds, I was counting. Anyway, coming up next, how do you like the sound of First Lady William Jefferson Clinton? The Hillary camp hopes you will. This is The Daily Wrap, and it's only on Newsmax TV. And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. As always, I'm joined by a man that is currently managing 15 NCAA March Madness pools. Good for him. It isn't illegal or anything.
That's so impressive. How many of these you can come up with?
Yes.
I don't know how you do it.
Thank you.
Hard.
Yes,
day.
I write these things myself, and that's Rick Unger. By the way, a little update if you want to come back at me for a moment. Underdogs in March Madness right now. We do give you breaking news here on the Daily Wrap. 10-0 against the spread. Underdogs are killing the favorites right now, and
UCLA wins.
UCLA wins.
Go
He
Bruins.
predicted it. Bracket busters are everywhere. Anyway, we're about 30 seconds left in the segment, so let me get to the meat of all this. Heather Hansen, of course, is here as well, along with the Rabbi Brad Hirschfield for the second night in a row. So, for the first time, I think, in presidential history, we will have a candidate running for First Lady in what is an extremely clever or not so clever move. A Hillary Clinton Political Action Committee launched a Bill for First Lady 2016.com. Am I on?
I am homesick.
Run, Hillary, run!
Run, Hillary, run!
Run, Hillary, run! Woo!
I'm traveling coast to coast.
Run, Hillary, run!
To cities.
Run, Hillary, run!
Run, Hillary, run! And college campuses.
Run, Hillary, run! Run, Hillary, run!
To build support for Hillary. And the enthusiasm is hashtag cray cray.
That is surreal. Forget what I had to look at. That was the worst Clinton imitation ever. It's like he's that hard to do. Anyway, in what was an extremely clever or not so clever move, depending on your perspective, a Hillary Clinton Political Action Committee launched a Bill for First Lady 2016.com website with the goal to get over 100,000 people to sign a petition urging the former First Lady to run for president, like she needs urging. The marketing is working to some degree. I mean, hey, it made the front page of the New York Post. Looking good. As Rick pointed out yesterday, Hillary is outpolling everyone, including every possible Republican challenger, and he is absolutely correct, but in an interesting Rasmussen poll that was released today, it finds 57% of Democrats won't commit to someone from the past, with 36% thinking their party needs someone new. 21% are undecided. Overall, over half, 54%, of likely voters believe Democrats should look for a fresh face in 2016. Heather Hansen, elect Bill Clinton for First Lady. Is this the strategy you would use if you were running that campaign?
No way. It's classless. It's ridiculous. It's a little bit sexist. I mean, you know, you wouldn't have Jeb Bush's wife running around in a bikini and saying, "Vote for my husband." I think that
They don't have a sense of humor.
Come on. But the thing is, I think that, you know, in some ways, Hillary is trying to go for a sense of humor. She spoke today at the American Camping Association, to the American Camping
We
Association.
have an American Camping Association?
Yes, and she spoke in Atlantic City and talked about how we have a fund deficit here in the United States, and all of us grown-ups need to go to camp and have a red house and a blue house, and we all get together and talk about things we can't agree upon. So I think she is trying to run as a more fun candidate, get a little lighter. Maybe that horrible ad is part of that. I don't know that it's effective, but I don't know that that's going to hurt her as much as some other
I
things.
think, Brad, in terms of fun and Hillary Clinton, she's synonymous with that the way Mitt Romney was synonymous with that.
They
It's
don't
gonna
go
feel
together.
So forced.
Right. And I think also right now she has a substance deficit, not a fun deficit. We haven't heard anything meaningful from her as a candidate in a while. And I think that that's a very serious issue. Look, this reminds me, do you remember when Bill ran, he said to the American, "You vote for me, you get her too."
That's a better imitation.
It's pretty bad too. and it didn't play well then. And I don't think this is going to play terribly well.
Over it.
No, and I think she's still going to do great as far as she'll go. But I don't think voters want to feel they're being sold a buy one, get one
Yes.
for the presidency.
Well,
and I think that's a real challenge here. I think she's going to have to decide, yes, she's the heir apparent, she's outpolling everyone, but at some point, people want to hear, what do you really stand for other than offering us another Clinton presidency?
I think, though, there are enough low-information voters out there that if they remember what Biden said, GM is alive and Bin Laden is dead. It was simple and it was very effective.
They're going to love that.
Now, with the Clintons, right, they could very easily just say, look, yes, Hillary's running, but really Bill is going to be very instrumental in the whole
Watching
thing.
over her.
And you get a roaring economy, you get peacetime. It's the 90s all over again without Ricky Martin. Boy, wouldn't I like to sign up for that.
But can we just give it up a little bit for some sense of humor in politics? I thought it was really funny. Can I point one thing out? Is it possible to put that Rasmussen poll back up? Because there's something you got to explain to me. I don't know. There it is. Took those top two lines. 50% of Democrats won't commit to someone from the past, but only 36 think the party needs a fresh face.
65% of the people know
How
that.
exactly does that work?
No, so I think how it
Wouldn't
works
be
is
on
it
the
has to
choices.
do with the incredible popularity that she has, given that no one can imagine
But
who
if-
that fresh face is.
but
right? So everyone is saying, I would love something different. Great, what would you like? I don't know.
There isn't one, but those two numbers just don't go together. So it just
Well,
struck me
I
as
think that is how they go together.
a weird
People
thing in the
sense
polling.
that they want something different.
But he's not there, or
outstrip
she's
the
not there.
offerings. They're
Right.
not there,
And that's
a real
exactly
problem,
right.
You have desire that can't be fulfilled
Well, it may not be a
because
problem.
who's on the menu.
May not be a problem, but it's,
Well, it's probably
but
good
this
for
is-
Hillary.
Right, this
It's
is
a
why
problem for
Hillary won't
American
get it.
politics, though.
It's a problem for Americans, I think. I think we need some new
Unless you
ideas
like
and
Hillary.
some new thoughts. But do they like Hillary? I don't think they know Hillary. I mean, we haven't heard what she stands for. I think you've even said that.
I have. We'll
so at
see,
this
but-
point, they need to. They like maybe the idea of
I
her.
just thought that was very odd that 57% say I won't support anybody from the past, which would include Hillary, but then only 36% say I'm only going to support a fresh face. Well, where's everybody else? I don't know.
You had the saying, I think it was a couple of nights ago, that you don't vote for the candidate you want to win, you vote against
I
the
don't
candidate
think.
you
I
don't
think
want to win.
that's how American elections go. I mean, basically, by the time we get through campaigns, we're so sick and tired of both of them that we vote for the least objectionable of the two. I don't see anything that's going to change that this time around.
I like what John Kasich had to say about that. It's been a whole week since I brought up a candidate that I may or may not endorse for president. He says, look, I like Hillary. You know, he worked with Bill Clinton on the budget, the balanced budget agreement in the 1990s. He says, but I'm not going to run against Hillary. I'm going to tell people what I'm for. Right, because that's what people ultimately vote for. Because Mitt Romney learned that you can't just say, well, with President Obama, the economy isn't very good, and there's Obamacare, and that's going to send the economy into the crapper.
But you
and
do
all
understand, if he were to actually run, and I actually, as time goes by, I'm understanding more and more why you feel the way you do about him. But do you really believe that John Kasich would get through a presidential campaign without running negative ads?
Obviously, his campaign would, but I think his tone itself would be a very positive one because he has a record to run on. Rick. That's the difference.
But
when you don't have a record to run on, you attack the other guy or girl.
You're right, but they're still going to make him do it. And if you're running negative campaigns, it is him.
Well, the media will drag it into a negative.
I mean, there's no choice, but you can be a little bit above it, or you can get right down in the dirt and
see.
Be
I
all
would
in.
actually vote for a candidate, even if I'd vote for Kasich. If he really went through the entire campaign, never ran a negative ad, never attacked, I'd say, I'm voting for this guy. That's the character.
Oh, is that all he has to do?
That's all he has to do.
It'll never be zero, but you don't have to be defined by the negativity.
Well,
and
yet they all are. So, you know.
Coming up next, should Americans be forced to vote? We have your answer. This is the Daily Wrap, only on Newsmax TV. And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. As always, I am joined by Rick Unger, Heather Hansen, and the Rabbi Brad Hirschfield. Should voting be mandatory? President Obama floating the idea yesterday.
In Australia and some other countries, there's mandatory voting. It would be transformative if everybody voted. That would counteract money more than anything. If everybody voted, then it would completely change the political map in this country. Because the people who tend not to vote are young, they're lower income, they're skewed more heavily towards immigrant groups and minority groups.
In other words, they're basically Democrats, as Rick just whispered. Yes, Mr. President, most people who don't vote probably would vote for a Democratic ticket if you force them to the polls. If I'm running the DNC, me likey that idea. Brad, do we really want people being forced to vote when they're not compelled to?
It feels pretty undemocratic to me, not to mention that not voting is also a political statement. To not vote is an action, and paying attention to that is really important. Also, we should remember, the history of pre-qualifying voters in this country is not so good, right? We did that with whole classes of people and kind of lived to be deeply ashamed of it. So it seems to me that pre-qualification, however well-intentioned or cynical, I'm probably 50-50 on this one with the president, is not a good idea. The one thing also I would say is he's right. It would be transformative if everyone did vote. But the transformation, if it's coerced, versus the transformation, if it's voluntary, is profound.
You make an excellent point about not voting can be your voice as well. There was a whole South Park episode on this. There was the P. Diddy, the vote or die campaign, and he literally was going around town like threatening to kill people if they didn't go to the polls, and they were voting on a school mascot, and you had to choose between a turd and a female product.
Be careful.
Right?
Okay,
I couldn't say the second one.
Now.
But the point being, though, that Stan didn't want to vote for either because I don't believe in either, and they forced him to the polls because voting's so important. So your thoughts?
Well, that's why we're different, and that's why we can't do it, because it's a First Amendment right. You have a First Amendment right not to speak, and if you have a choice between, say, Elizabeth Warren and Rick Santorum, and you don't want to vote at all, that is your First Amendment right. That's why I don't think it will ever happen here. It's interesting, Rupert Murdoch actually tweeted today in response to President Obama's
Australian,
statement.
by the way.
From Australia.
No, he's American now.
Originally from Australia.
Right. And he said that he actually thinks it's a good idea, and that President Obama may be surprised by who would actually turn up. There's a book called Compulsory Voting For and Against by Jason Brennan that talked about the people that would actually do the voting, and it's not exactly what President Obama might think. It's working class white people, and they are usually less educated, yes, but also much more socially conservative. So you might see a Democratic Party that moves to the right and a totally different type of election.
You happen to be right. I was kidding about Democrats, but in fact, what you just said is correct. The research shows that it would probably be about a wash politically, so that's a very fair point. Look, this is an interesting topic. You've got the political side of it, which I think does solve itself based on the data you have there. And then the legal side. And this is something that would keep Heather and I busy for days because you could make some really compelling arguments constitutionally. You know, what I brought up to Heather earlier, I go, well, why is it constitutional to force people to serve jury duty? You know, what if I don't want to? What if I don't believe it? And by the way, the easy solution to the point you raised, Rabbi, is you could certainly have an entry on a ballot, I don't like anybody.
But can I?
You could, but the experience of being forced into that voting booth has some very
I
weird
take the point.
resonances.
I take the
and I
point.
think that that's the thing. To the extent that the president is right, it would be transformative. The greatness of its transformation would be if it was freely chosen.
So Heather's
and
got a point
politicians
on the
don't want to admit
Constitution.
that.
Well, the First Amendment, it includes not being forced to go to the voting booth and do that. And if you look at the countries, I mean,
But
yes.
why does it allow them to force me to go have
But
to
jury
serve
duty is, you know, I looked into this because it is an interesting issue and it's complicated, but jury duty is, there's nothing in the Constitution. You are entitled to a trial by jury.
Yes.
But there's nothing, the 13th Amendment arguably says that they can't force
That's
you
right.
to do something.
That's
you
right.
get paid for jury
And
duty.
yet they do. There's a federal
It's-
statute that requires you to pay a fine
and
or
it's
go to jail.
State by state, really, that really compels you to be there. But if you look at the places that do it, Australia does it well. But you've got Argentina, you've got
They have
Egypt,
problems.
you've got
There's
Lebanon,
downsides.
a lot of problems. And Switzerland, which has the lowest turnout rate, is probably one of the best governed.
There is some middle ground here that we're not hitting, which is why not change election day to Sunday?
Or have it a day off.
Or Saturday, or a day off. That would make it easier for people to go. There is some middle
I think a lot
ground
of people
here.
agree with that. Let me go back to the legal point for a second. How would this happen if in other words, who would have to initiate this sort of initiative?
It'd be a constitutional amendment.
It would be.
Yeah.
Okay. And Republicans would obviously
And
be
the
against it,
president
despite the research
pointed
you
that
just
out,
shared.
by the way. The president did point that out in his speech yesterday. It would require that.
None of the above is interesting because that happened in a movie called Brewster's Millions with Richard
right.
Pryor back in 1983. And it was
right.
vote none of the above, and he actually won the New York City mayor's
We're
race.
the only
If
two
you
people who
freely-
saw that movie, apparently. I love that
It's a
movie.
short list.
And nobody ever knows that movie, and I think it's hysterical.
With
Richard
John
Pryor,
Candy.
man,
Yeah,
and John
it's a good
Candy.
movie.
That's
yeah.
right, and none of the above won.
If you freely choose it, I back it. If not, no.
There you go. Well, coming up next, we look at our favorite stories of the day during Potluck. This is the Daily Wrap, only on Newsmax TV. And welcome back to the Daily Wrap, everyone. It's Potluck time. This is the part of the show where we go around the table and share our favorite stories of the day. Heather, ladies first.
Lots going on in Pine Bush High School, which is in upstate New York, where it's National Foreign Language Week this week. And every day they've done the Pledge of Allegiance in a different language. And yesterday they did it in Arabic, and all hell broke loose at Pine Bush High School. There were tweets and there were problems, and the principal was apologizing and said it would never happen again, and we're going to totally nix this whole program. And at first I was like, this is sort of ridiculous. It seems to me that if you want to use different languages to have different people do the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag, it's an honor, and they should be. It's wonderful. But as you look into it more, first of all, what's interesting is the State Department of Education mandates the pledge has to be said in English, which shocked me. I had no idea that was the case. But second of all, at this particular school system, there was an article in the New York Times in 2013. They have huge issues and a big federal lawsuit about anti-Semitism. So a lot of people who are Jewish in that community were very upset about this. A lot of people in that community apparently have family members who have died in Afghanistan. Those are the different people that were objecting. So what I found interesting about the whole story was there's a lot of debate back and forth. Some people say it absolutely should never be done in anything but English. You're in America, do it in our language. And other people who said let's be inclusive, there's nothing wrong with it. But when you put some context to it and talk about people as individuals as opposed to left and right or black and white, you understand both sides, and maybe it could have been a better conversation rather than just shutting it down.
Right. Yeah, I get the sensitivities. At the same time, first of all, they don't speak Arab in Afghanistan. So that's number one. If the people are getting upset about that, they don't know what they're talking about. I do have some sensitivity with respect to whatever the anti-Semitism issue is. I don't know. I think it's the spin you put on it. I think if you say that this is an attempt to bridge differences, it's a darn positive thing. So
I think it's a great idea, but it's a reminder. The more we want to stretch people on any issue, the more context counts. The more powerful the good idea is that stretches people, the more you got to reach them where they are if you're going to deploy it. I love this idea. Imagine hundreds of millions of Arabic speakers reciting the Pledge of Allegiance around the world because it was a symbol of what they believed in. Right? That's amazing. It's an amazing thing. But you got to know where, when, with whom, and how, because all that matters as much as the what.
Well, and when you get the pushback, don't just say, okay, we're going to stop it. Have a conversation about it.
not
I mean,
a
it doesn't
lot
have
of
to be at
courage there, is
Starbucks.
there?
Have a
Well, I think
conversation
people don't
about
have
it.
the tools. I don't want to vote
That's
for lack
the
of
problem.
courage. They don't have the conceptual tools
right.
to know that rather than making this right or wrong, good or bad, because, okay, we had a great idea here. We should trust that instinct. It turns out you folks, a lot of you, had a really remarkable sensitivity that we have to respond
Heather had
to.
the solution,
now what are we
though.
going to do?
Heather gave us a solution. We need to have it written on Starbucks cups, Arabs, Pledge of Allegiance, and talk about it with your barista.
That's the way to go.
It's a shame it's not my potluck time because that would have been a perfect transition.
Oh,
So
sorry.
you have to wait about 10 minutes for that one. Anyway, Rick, you are up next.
For those of you keeping score on Obamacare, it's narrowing. If we can put the chart up, I brought. You notice I came with lots of
you.
charts today.
Big chart night.
Big chart day for me. The gap is narrowing. You can't see it very well, but you can see at the end how close it's getting. You go back just to July of this year, and there was a big spread.
Can I stop you there for a second?
Yeah.
When you say how close it's getting in the big spread,
Well, yeah.
what is getting close
Yeah,
and what's the
I was
spread?
just going to say that. It's a good question, Joe. It's the top line, the red line, are people who do not approve of Obamacare. The blue line are people who do approve of Obamacare. And you can see, going back to July, it was as low of only 37% approved of the law, 53% were opposed to it. Now we're at 43% opposed, 41% in favor. This is, as you again, following that chart, this is the first time we've seen it really get that way, except for September of, I think it was last year, you saw some line crossing going on there. I think we're finally settling in on Obamacare, and I think that the fear and the anger is starting to calm down, which is important because maybe now we're getting close to the time where we can make some fixes that need to be made without some big political price to pay.
I wonder how the poll was taken. In other words, how the question was asked, because I saw this on Jimmy Kimmel one time,
Right.
where if you say, do you like Obamacare or you don't like Obamacare, the spread is
But
much
if you,
bigger.
do you like the Affordable
Do you
Care
like the
Act?
Affordable Care Act?
Awesome, I love it.
It's basically
Who doesn't
even.
want Affordable Care?
So
Right.
I saw in that chart, I think it said ACA or
It
Affordable
said
Care
ACA.
Act. So just the language. It's
But
amazing how
you're
much
still
difference.
seeing that, you're right.
Well, I'm
but
not
you're
arguing
seeing
the
distinction.
results. It's
Yeah.
just funny how when you
That is
change
true.
that one little
Makes a
word,
big
that changes
difference.
everything.
I
Heather.
think part of the change, part of the increase in approval is because there was such disapproval after the whole nightmare with the internet and the website. And so there was such a high disapproval then, and now it's kind of leveling off. What I thought was really interesting is half of the people who were polled don't even know about the subsidy case that's going before the Supreme Court, which may knock this whole thing out of
Does that
order.
surprise you
Explain that
that
in
people
15
didn't
seconds.
know?
No.
They really don't know about it, and that's
Right.
going to change everything. Also, it'll be interesting to know not only what they think, but why they think it. Are those peaks and valleys driven by news stories,
Right.
or by more people being well served by the American Affordable
Hopefully
Care
the
Act?
second.
We hope the second.
And
Let's find out.
there is, I know Heather's going to disagree, but there is mounting evidence that it is working for a lot of people.
And that will
Let's
be
find
our
out.
last word from Mr. Charts. And when we come back, more potluck for you, including my own. This is the Daily Wrap only on Newsmax TV. And welcome back to Daily Wrap. I'm your host, Joe Concha. And if you're just joining us, we're in the middle of our potluck, where we share our favorite stories of the day. Well, I'll be going first tonight in our E-block, as we call it. So if I save up enough money to enjoy a cup of $5 coffee at Starbucks tomorrow, what question will I most likely be asked? Regular or hazelnut, sir? Tall or grande, sir? By the way, who decided in Starbucks land that a tall is actually a small? It's very confusing. Cash or credit card, sir? Or will it be, so what are your thoughts on Selma getting hosed at the Academy Awards this year? Huh? What? I just want my damn coffee. I'm tired. I'm addicted to this stuff. Where do you think these shiny red coffee cups came from? We drink it all the time here on the Daily Wrap. And when I go to Starbucks, I want two things: complete and total anonymity, which Heather, Rick, and Brad will tell you is very hard to accomplish when you're a regular part of a show like this one, a national one that reaches 14 million homes. In other words, I don't want to talk to anybody. I want to grab a comfy chair, get my paper, and yes, I read a paper, not my damn phone, and only orders of thank you or here's your change, sir, is the only light noise I want to be hearing in the background. And certainly nothing about a need to disband the Ferguson Police Department or why affirmative action is a good thing. But that's what's going on at Starbucks. They're being compelled to have race conversations. These poor Baristas, or how do you pronounce it? Baristas?
Baristas.
Right, yeah, that's the fancy word I don't use. The people that serve you. You think their goal in life is to work for $10 an hour at a place that marks up the true price of a cup of coffee by 900%? And now they're being asked to heal racial wounds in America. I'll bet that opening at Dunkin' Donuts down the road is looking pretty good right about now. And by the way, they have infinitely better coffee down there. So while Starbucks should be, it's true, commended for trying to do something positive, as awkward as it may be, one rule needs to be followed here. Don't ever make a server do something with customers they don't want to do, because we've literally seen this movie before.
We need to talk about your flair.
Really? I have 15 pieces on.
Well, okay, 15 is the minimum. Okay?
Okay.
Now, you know, it's up to you whether or not you want to just do the bare minimum or, well, like Brian, for example, has 37 pieces of flair on today, okay? A terrific smile.
Okay, so you want me to wear more?
Look, we want you to express yourself, okay?
Not for $8 to $10 an hour, no one should be expressing themselves. And we'll see you at Dunkin'. The Starbucks idea, Rick, I know you have some thoughts on this.
It's really simple. You know, they can write on the cup anything they want. It's okay with me. I don't care what they write. They can talk to whoever they want to talk to, but I got to tell you, if I'm in line waiting for my coffee, and somebody's having a conversation that has anything to do with anything but where is my coffee, we're going to have a problem. Someone's getting hurt.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea in theory, but you can't force people to have those kinds of conversations.
It's like forcing people to vote.
Right?
Agreed.
It's something like that. Look, I'm right there with you. And that's on Starbucks, but I'm the quality of the coffee at Dunkin', right? I'm not allowed to say that, but totally much better. But here's the thing. Starbucks was never primarily about the coffee. Starbucks was always about creating community. And the truth is, that's what they're trying to do. So I think it's an interesting model. I don't think it's going to work, but I think they're trying to create community.
Don't you?
A perfect last word, and now you are the final head chef for our dessert, which will be a meal in essence.
Yeah, this one's a little heavier. It's UVA student Martise Johnson. And a lot of us have already seen those images, and unless you're living under a rock, by tomorrow, the whole world's going to see them. I actually wish Martise Johnson had been white.
Explain what happened.
And I want to say, so what happened was he tried to get into a bar. He is underage. They claim, try to use a fake ID. Alcoholic beverage control cops hustled him away from the doorway, outside onto the bricks. He went down hard, big gash, 10 stitches in his head. Here's what we know. He didn't do anything violent. The charges against him were obstruction without violence or force. The reason I wish he was white is we're going to lose the thread here if we make this about race. What this is about is unnecessary violence, and that's what we're going to have to address. There are plenty of race issues to go after, but we were going to make a terrible mistake if this one's thought of as about race. Most cops don't make that mistake, but clearly this is a wake-up call. If a good kid, and by the way, Google him, watch what he said to the audience while he came back from the hospital and saying to them, right? Just respect each other because we're all one here. Yeah. I mean, they picked the wrong kid to beat on because this kid's a star. Yeah.
But can I, Brad, just to let you know, there's a woman named Elizabeth Daly who sued the same cops, the ABC they're called, because she too had a problem with them, and she's a young white girl.
Right.
So you're right, it's not about race, it's more about maybe a problem with that particular force.
There's a problem with this police force, and I get it. Underage drinking is dangerous and it's deadly for the kids, but that's not a justification to do takedowns like this kid is a violent terrorist. He did a stupid thing, an illegal thing, shouldn't be in the bar.
That we've all done.
That can't happen.
And you're so right. I mean, not only was he remarkably well spoken, but they interviewed some of his friends. All of them.
They're almost as good.
Superstars, you know, and they, as you said, they picked on the wrong kid. It's going to really hurt them.
Wow. Well, it certainly makes you want to root for the University of Virginia in the NCAA March Madness. There seems to be some good people there down in Charlottesville, and besides, I have them going to the finals where they will lose to Arizona or something. Anyway, more yay or nay when we come back. This is the Daily Wrap, only on Newsmax TV. And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. It's time for Yay or Nay. Well, let's take a look at True Lies, shall we?
Gentlemen, please identify yourselves to the scanner. Greg Pasca 10024. Albert Gibson 34991.
What political debate show gives you more 90s movies than we do?
telling you.
Honestly. It's tremendous.
I'm telling you.
Anyway, that looked pretty high-tech, didn't it? That was 1994's True Lies with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Tom Arnold, I believe that was in there as well. And Jamie Lee Curtis.
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Will soon become reality for average Americans thanks to Microsoft. The company today announcing Windows Hello, a security feature that uses a face, an iris, or a fingerprint scan similar to Apple's Fingerprint ID to allow users to access devices running Windows 10. The feature has a 1 in 100,000, let's do that again, a 1 in 100,000 false accept rate, meaning that it's much safer and much harder to hack than any password you could come up with yourself, and we always forget passwords anyway. Right. It does seem a lot safer and a lot less cumbersome. I mean, you can't really replace your eye, your hand, or your whatever else body part, right? So using your face as a typical password, you all for it there, Brad?
I gotta go yay. I'm not spooked by it at all, and I forget passwords like wildfire, so it's good. It helps personal service to me, yay.
I'm with you. I love the idea. I think it's fabulous and makes me feel very Jetsons.
I'm a yay, but I'm not going to switch to Microsoft from Apple as a result of it.
Really?
No, I'm an Apple devotee.
Okay.
But I am a yay.
That's very good. I think we're all yays, which is probably not the point of this segment. We should be disagreeing in some way. We should be freaked out in some way, shape, or form. But I think, you know what, with Apple, I already have the, you turn on the phone by just using my thumbprint, and it's just so much more convenient, right? So. Medical marijuana helps many cancer patients deal with pain and side effects of chemotherapy treatments, but what about our pets? Nevada Senator Tick Seigerblom introduced a new bill that would allow sick pets to use pot as a form of treatment. Some vets who have given cannabis to sick and dying pets say it's relieved their symptoms, although the substance has been proven as a painkiller for animals. The Pot for Pets provision is part of a larger bill, SB 372, that would remove penalties for drivers found with marijuana in their bloodstream and require training for pot shop owners. So what do you think? Pot for Pets, yay for nay? Heather Hansen.
I don't like it. I think that there's no need for our pets to be walking around high. Why?
What if they're in pain?
Listen, there's no proof that it does, and the bill itself has all kinds of issues.
The guy's
where
name is Sig. What was it?
Well, did you see that picture of him? I wonder what condition he was in with the feet up on the desk.
Sig Fire.
Sickenbong,
How can you not be for a guy whose name is Sig? Whatever it is.
Itself is a little scary when you've got people driving all
high. You ever give a cat
catnip?
Catnip?
Yeah, sure.
Same
what's
kind
the
of thing.
difference?
I think that, Heather, you're right. That's the real issue. This has gotten tucked into a bunch of other rules that actually make it easier and less problematic to be driving stoned. That I'm opposed to. Pets want to get high? Who cares? They're pets.
I heard you drive much better when you're stoned. That's just what I've heard.
That's what people when they're high always say. I never said it. And that's the problem. Let them get high.
That's why I'm a nay, that the whole bigger provision here that no one ever talks about, legalize pot. Yeah, because we did so well with alcohol, or we're doing so well with kids texting and driving. Why not put another substance into their systems, or adults for that matter? It's got to delay your reactions in some way.
It does.
Or make you sleepy. Or have you ever tried to eat and drive at the same time?
Right,
because that's what happens.
Will you give up alcohol then with that concern?
What do you mean?
And well, we should, if we're going to criminalize pot, then it's only fair that we criminalize alcohol. You're right; it's the same thing. So why is alcohol legal?
You're right.
I don't know how to tell you this. The house has been out of the barn on pot for a really
long time. This is yay or nay, so we have to move on. Anyway,
won't change it.
Rick, have you ever heard of a cobot? Well, a cobot is a collaborative robot that is part of a new generation of affordable, lightweight robots designed to work alongside humans in industries beyond just factories. The US-based company, Rethink Robotics, unveiled Sawyer today, the company's newest cobot. The single-armed robot is a more accurate, faster, and smaller than previous cobots, enabling it to take on more tasks. It can also carry more weight and cost a lot less than the previous models, only about $29,000. So, Mr. Brad, are cobots good for the economy, yay or nay?
They're great for the economy as a whole, but they may be terrible for workers. So it's a yay on the economy. The jury's really out for individuals.
Heather.
Yeah, I think that if we had more people trained in how to build them and how to do all of the work that it takes to get to the robot would be wonderful, because it would be great for the economy and building our whole workforce. To get there is a little bit of a problem.
Right.
I would say it's which side of the economy you're on. Brad's right. I mean, it's not good for workers. But you know what, folks? We've been saying for generations the day was coming when robots would replace humans. Well, it's here. And we need to cop to it, and we need to face up to it, and we need to get people trained so that they can exist in today's reality.
Holding it back is a terrible idea. It's not holding back technology. We have to learn how to live into it smart.
Agree.
I am a total yay. 60 Minutes did a great piece on how an Amazon warehouse works, and it's all robots just taking things off shelves. That's why we get everything perfectly on Amazon in 2 days. So Heather is exactly right. Better train some people on this because those jobs are going away in a hurry. And that's our show for this evening. Wow, you guys did a great job. We all got along so well. I thought it was a tremendous show. And that's it. More Daily Wrap tomorrow night at 6 p.m. I'm Joe Concha saying bye-bye.